Life is going to throw curveballs.
He's one of the most understated dudes in terms of his footprint, his impact, what he's created in his business life.
We're all going to deal with hardship. Not everyone is going to leverage it, embrace it. You just get back up and come swinging. I just want to start by saying I'm grateful for being here, here on earth in general, let alone in this room with all you guys. So thank you for putting this on. I'm going to start by saying this. By the time I'm done speaking today, roughly 30 people will have committed suicide. There's 700,000 suicides each year across the world, so that's about 2,000 a day, roughly, more than one per minute. The number of drug-related deaths each year about the same. And as I look around this room of extraordinary individuals, each of whom has had to overcome our own set of challenges in life, I can't help but wonder what lightness was waiting on the other side of their darkness, had they chosen to slay their dragons like us instead of be consumed by them. How many of you have hit some sort of rock bottom in your own lives? Maybe struggle with depression or hopelessness, abuse, addiction, maybe incarceration. And yet here we are. Despite life's challenges, look at how far we've come. Reflect on our achievements, the legacies we're forging, the lives we get to impact, and the people who get to impact ours. So again, I think about the millions of people each year who lose the fight to their dragons. What lightness was waiting on the other side of their darkness? How many of them were future Jim Strikers or Sean Kingsbury's or Matt Laughlin's or Eric Rock's or Alex Donnolo's or Levi Gurno's or Kimberly Bevins or Joe Lee's, any of us? No matter who you are, Christian, Buddhist, atheist, Republican, Democrat, wealthy, poor, male, female, it doesn't matter. There's a through line that connects us all, and that's that life is fucking hard. The universe doesn't care about your thoughts or your feelings or your goals or how many loved ones you have. It'll knock you down when you least expect it, and it'll throw curveballs you never saw coming. And those low points in life, like we talk about here in this room, those are actually opportunities to strengthen our mind, deepen our self-awareness, and get really fucking clear on what matters. But it's not adversity itself that makes us stronger, it's what we choose to do with it. Napoleon Hill says that with each hardship comes a seed of equal or greater benefit. But it's just a seed, right? We still have to, it's on us to water it and nurture it to its full potential. Or as Matt Laughlin says, you can only go as high as you've been low. That's one of my favorite quotes. But the quote is not that you will go as high as you've been low, it's that you can. It's a choice. It's still on us to create the silver lining. We're all going to deal with hardship. Not everyone is going to leverage it, embrace it. We've heard it said right here in this room, nobody is coming to save us. So good for us for being here, for showing up, for doing the hard work every fucking day. They say showing up is half the battle, but for some of us, even that part is hard. Most of you know the highlight reel of my life, the Instagram version, like my beautiful and talented 10-year-old daughter, who's without question my greatest accomplishment, or the $20 million in real estate that I own and plan to double next year. I even achieved moderate success as a film and television actor, working alongside celebrities and attending red carpet events. I've been all over the world, lived in Europe for a while, taking my daughter to the Eiffel Tower and castles in Germany. I have luxury condos in Mexico, but believe me when I tell you that I'm no stranger to struggle, no stranger to darkness. There was a point in my life where I was not only suicidal, struggling with addiction, but also facing life in prison. So I'm here, hopefully, to inspire those in darkness to find their light and to remind them that it's possible. So let's start at the beginning. I was raised in Coeur d'Alene, grew up an only child. My parents were never together. I always had big dreams, big goals, knew I was a man on a mission, knew I was meant for big things, felt like people around me were small-minded, even my teachers and authority figures. I wanted to do big things, build businesses, see the world. By the time I was in high school, I had a clothing brand and a landscaping company. I had my own money, my own cars. I was popular with the girls, had lots of friends, partied all the time, did well in school and sports. For the most part, things were going pretty well. Then, on November 6, 2008, something happened that would forever alter the trajectory of my life. I was faced with a dragon so big that it almost took me down. Me and my best friend Chad were falsely accused of rape. Basically, we were both with a girl at a party, and a few months later, she decided it wasn't consensual. I was arrested out of high school, interrogated for hours, and despite proclaiming my innocence, was charged and booked into juvenile detention. The next day, they came and told us we were being charged as adults and transported us to Kootenai County Jail. 15 years old, being charged as adults and facing life in prison. The general consensus was this had a lot to do with bad timing. Joseph Duncan, for those of you who don't know, was a serial killer who abducted and murdered 3 children right here in Coeur d'Alene. He was given 3 consecutive life sentences in 2006, and now 2 years later, we sat in the same jail that he did. They wanted to make an example out of any and all violent offenders, and rightfully so, but we truly weren't the guys they wanted. We got bailed out, but there was no returning to life as normal. Our mugshots were all over the TVs and newspapers, and we even made national news. Chad and I were tried separately with different legal teams. He got a public defender. My family hired the best attorneys money could buy, and that ended up backfiring in the end. The hearings went on for 18 months. Every day I was consumed with legal appointments, court proceedings, and the fear of spending the rest of my life in prison. We dropped out of school to focus on the case. We stood our ground and fought for our innocence, had witnesses brought in from that night, dozens of character letters sent in on our behalf. We passed polygraphs and psych evaluations. There was, of course, no physical evidence of any kind. It boiled down to her word against ours. It turned out this was actually the 7th time the accuser had made claims of this nature, but due to privacy laws, that wasn't admissible in court. Our judge also had a long history of handing out harsh sentences and a strong desire to set us straight. He despised my hotshot attorney. It was painful watching them go at it in court. My attorney would object to everything the prosecutors would say, and then my judge would angrily overrule every objection. And then after almost 2 years of grueling preliminary hearings preparing for trial, the prosecutors offered a plea deal. They offered to lessen the charges, drop the sex charges to a non-registrable offense, that carried a maximum of 10 years in prison with a recommendation for probation. Although it was enticing, I refused. I wanted to stand my ground, to see it through, to go to trial and prove our innocence. Chad rejected the plea deal at first too, but his public defender eventually convinced him to tap out. What's worse is rather than just plead guilty, they tried to portray me as the perpetrator, with Chad being an innocent bystander. This obviously compromised my case and my chances at trial, and even worse, it broke my heart. Because the truth was, we were best friends. He was the closest thing I ever had to a brother. He pretty much lived in my house growing up. And looking back, those were some of the best days of my life, just 2 kids having fun, skateboarding every day, riding our 4-wheelers, going camping. I felt free back then, and that was all about to change. Chad would later go on to retract his testimony. On the day he was set to take the stand, he pled the 5th. And it was a noble move, but the damage had been done. It was too late. He gave the courts reason to question our innocence. They didn't know what to believe at this point. And to make matters worse, I had become severely depressed and fallen into a dark spiral of self-medicating and self-sabotaging. My parents sent me to a clinic for suicide prevention. Then came Wilderness Reform Camp, where I was taken against my will to live in the desert for 3 months. And after that, I was sent to a boarding school for troubled kids. This all took place between the ages of 15 and 16, and all while facing life in prison. And I just wanted to die and for it all to go away. In the end, I threw in the towel too. I said fuck it and took the plea deal. I had fought as long and as hard as I could, but I had to end the misery. Why keep dragging out the uncertainty when the prosecutors were offering probation? Yeah, we would be labeled as felons, but at least not as sex offenders, and my family could stop draining hundreds of thousands of dollars on the legal teams, and we could all try to move on with our lives. So on December 17th, 2010, 5 days before my 17th birthday, I sat before the judge on my day of sentencing. There were so many nuances at this point, but we all assumed the courts would take it easy on us. It was clear we weren't violent offenders. I got to make my final remark, and I stood in my truth, that I was only accepting the deal as a means to an end, that I stood behind my testimony, and I did apologize for the inappropriate actions that landed us in this situation that no 15 or 16-year-old should be partaking in, and for any impact that had on the courts and the families involved. When the judge began his sentencing remarks, 2 additional bailiffs entered the room, and I knew right then I was going to prison. The room fell silent, except for the sound of my heart beating out of my chest. And he spoke in a slow and stoic manner when he explained that despite the events of that night being unclear and questionable, it was clear that I was headed down the wrong path, and it was his job to intervene. His next words hit me like a punch to the chest. I hereby sentence you to 10 years in the Idaho State Correctional Institution. You'll be remanded into custody immediately. And as he spoke, the bailiffs closed in on me. I heard my mom break down crying, and my dad say, "Stay strong, Alex, we love you." Chad was sentenced a few weeks after me. The judge took into consideration that he was the first to take the plea deal and gave weight to his claim that he had less involvement. He was given 5 years. We were transported to maximum security at Boise State Prison and housed in solitary confinement because we couldn't be in general population until we turned 18. So they housed us next to the most violent offenders, murderers, gang members, predators, and the criminally insane, listening to them yell under the doors all night and make threats and weird noises. Chad and I were obviously in different wings, so we never saw each other, but I knew he was going through the same hell that I was. The guards teased and tormented us, didn't feed us some days, ignored my countless requests to speak to the sergeant or the warden or the medical staff. I'll tell you this much, being locked in an 8x10 cell 24 hours a day will eat away at your sanity. I lost my mind, I lost all sense of time and reality. I stopped eating, I stopped sleeping, I stopped cleaning my cell, I stopped showering. And besides, we were only allowed to shower twice a week, and they would have to first handcuff you through your door slot, butt-ass naked, and then walk you out into a dirty shower cage where you showered on display in front of all these other inmates. So I just stopped doing that altogether. You can only go as high as you've been low, right? Well, my time in solitary confinement was both the most devastating and empowering experience of my life. It gave me the rare opportunity to strengthen my mind, deepen my gratitude for life, challenge the warrior within, and to fuel the already burning desire that I had to be somebody, to show the world who the fuck I really am. And what better way than to fight and come out on top of this situation, to slay a dragon so big that any future dragons that got in my way, I could just plow right through. It was hard, really hard, yet somehow I managed to survive. I was released after just 1 year, but it was the hardest year of my life. Chad wasn't so fortunate. He was found dead in his cell. He hung himself. The worst part is that he and I were at odds when he took his own life. I hadn't forgiven him. The system had pitted us against each other and succeeded. He had tried to apologize and make amends prior to sentencing, but I was too upset. Deep down, I know this isn't my burden to carry, but I wish I had forgiven him while he was still alive. I wish I had reminded him that I loved him, that we were in this together, we were going to get through and come out on top. That we weren't defined by the labels and the shackles that they put on us. And not a day goes by when I don't think about him. There are many days when I consider killing myself too, but I made a decision not to give up. I was determined to live an extraordinary life for the both of us. I needed to show the world that they were wrong about us. And I decided I was going to leverage this unfortunate chapter in my life and turn it into the fuel that propelled me towards greatness. When they released me from prison, I hit the streets with a warrior mentality. I was a man on a mission to live an extraordinary life, to achieve greatness, to throw a middle finger to the system. I was on parole for 5 years. That was almost worse than prison in some ways. They kept trying to bring me down, but I just kept grinding, kept studying, kept growing my mind and my body, making connections, building businesses. And as the story goes, I now have an amazing daughter, a successful company, and I live a life filled with freedom and abundance. And I'm only just getting started. In 2021, 10 years after my release, I put together a legal team to go back and fight and have my felony erased. I didn't care how much it cost or how long it took. I was prepared to go all the way up to the Supreme Court if I had to. But to my surprise, my previous judge approved our motion without hesitation. I'm no longer a felon. I have a tattoo on my hand that says, "Life is the gift." Because life is the gift, all of it, the good and the bad. Like Brad Lee says, we wouldn't trade our current existence for $10 million, despite all the problems we think we have. So just every day that we get to step foot on this earth is a blessing. Nothing is more valuable than life itself, just being here, breathing, existing. That's the gift. And in order to truly experience and appreciate the highs, we have to endure the lows. Because life comes in a spectrum. Love, laughter, happiness, pain, sadness, suffering. It's a package deal. And the more we embrace the spectrum, the more we flourish. I also have the words "forged in fire" tattooed on my neck. Because that chapter of my life, although difficult, inspired me to be the man that I am today, a force to be reckoned with. Although I'm not perfect and I've accepted that life isn't either, I'm learning more and more to dance in the imperfection. Because life is going to throw curveballs. It will lift you up and knock you down, but you just get back up and come swinging. Because had I given up when I was at my low point, look at all the highs that I would have missed out on. I want to read you this letter that my daughter wrote me a few weeks ago. Dad, I have always looked up to you. You spoil me with love and pets, LOL, and hugs and kisses. I will forever love you, and I mean forever. Even if you do bad things, and you don't. I have never been in a moment where I don't love you, and I have a beautiful home. And Dad, you get me through hard times. And I just could write a whole book about you, and one day I will. I have good clothes and shoes and parents, and I just love you. You are so strong and handsome. Sorry, got to go. Love you. all of that light was waiting for me on the other side of my darkness. Who knows what Chad's life would look like today, what letters his kids would be writing him. My mission is to embrace the spectrum, play full out, and inspire those in darkness to find their light. If my testimony can be a reminder to never give up, never settle, never stop standing in your truth, never play small, never stop fighting for your dreams, no matter how hard or how many times you get knocked down, then it was all worth it for me. I'm Alex Donnolo, and I like to do hard things. Thank you, guys.